They are the insiders, Chris Johnston, Pierre LeBrun, and Darren Dreger. Gentlemen, the trade deadline is still almost 4 months away, and it's true. Tuesday's Lars Eller deal from Pittsburgh to Washington, not exactly a blockbuster. But Dregs, are you hearing more trade chatter than normal right now?
Yeah, that's fair. And look, on an annual basis, you can pretty much mark it on your calendar, right? NHL clubs get to the 20-game mark of the regular season. U.S. Thanksgiving is around the corner, and they're coming out of a general managers meeting just out of the Hall of Fame weekend. And obviously, the talk among general managers is going to heat up, and that's where it's at now. But I'm looking at three GMs who seem more eager to listen and to continue the dialogue of potential trade. I'm looking at Kevin Adams of the Buffalo Sabres. I'm looking at Barry Trotz of the Nashville Predators. And I'm also looking at Kyle Dubas of the Pittsburgh Penguins, who made that trade earlier in the week. Now, if we go back to Buffalo, yes, Adams is willing to consider something bigger, but he does not want to trade away any of his top young NHL talent. Barry Trotz has multiple first-round draft picks. He's got a couple of seconds, so the draft capital is there. He wants to add long-term solutions in Nashville. And Kyle Dubas of the Pittsburgh Penguins, he knows what he's dealing with. He's got the Hall of Famers there, but he also recognizes that given his contract status, the length of his contract, this is going to be a complex project of work. He wants young NHL players and draft picks to build for a better future.
Hey, listen, while some hockey fans are worried about their future, for Leaf fans, the future is now. They want to know now what's the situation with Auston Matthews. When's he going to return? What's the latest, CJ?
Well, it's still not able at this point to pinpoint exactly which game he'll be back for. You know, obviously it remains a day-by-day kind of situation for Matthews. I can tell you there is some optimism here. Not only is his recovery believed to be moving in the right direction, but there is a feeling that when he does return, he will be completely over this issue, that this rest period will basically eliminate the issue entirely for Auston Matthews. And so the schedule is also in the favor of the Leafs at this point in time. They played already 5 back-to-backs this year, but right now they only have 3 games in 13 days. And so that gives a nice window here for Matthews to ramp himself up through practice and eventually return to the lineup.
Whenever he does return, Matthews is certainly going to be a major centerpiece for Team USA at the Four Nations Cup in February. But despite 12 goals in his first 16 games this year, the same can't currently be said about Cole Caufield, Pierre?
No, not quite, Gino. And listen, no final decisions have been made, but our understanding is that despite his really great start to the season offensively, Cole Caufield is right now on the outside looking in for that 23-man roster for Team USA. It speaks to the ridiculous depth that Team USA has, arguably the greatest depth it has of best-on-best hockey in its entire history. But right now, he's on the outside looking in. He could still make it, I was told today. It really depends on what happens on the final 2 weeks here and how a few other things shake out. But Team USA down to 405 final decisions here as they narrow down to that 23-man roster.
And with so many players on the bubble, there's word that a couple of teams have asked for a little bit more wiggle room on their rosters, Pierre?
Yes, 2 of the Four Nations teams, and geez, I wonder who they were. Yeah, that's right. It was Canada and the U.S. that approached the National Hockey League recently and asked to expand the rosters from 23 to 25 players. Of course, the U.S. and Canada with the 2 deeper NHL talent pools. The answer was no from the NHL and jointly from the NHL Players Association. Everyone agreed, all the 4 nations and the league and the PA, to a 23-man roster last year when they announced the 4 nations face-off. No one was in a mood to change that rule. But you understand it from the USA and Canada perspective. They're going to leave some big names off this roster. You know, we just talked about it potentially. But then they're going to go to those players and say, please don't book a trip to the Bahamas in February because we might have injuries and we might still need you. That's why the U.S. and Canada was hoping to expand the roster, but they got a flat-out rejection.
Look, we all love the idea of international best-on-best hockey, but, Dregs, there's a cost that goes with it when the games come in the middle of the NHL season.
Yeah, it's a density of games, so condensed NHL regular season schedule. And general managers and coaches and clubs across the National Hockey League are feeling that right now. You're hearing complaints of a lack of practice time. You're worried about the recovery as teams continue to play games, and then they've got travel on top of that. Next year, it gets worse with the Olympic break and the All-Star break. Now, there are 2 examples this year where there will be 5 games in a 7-day period for a couple of clubs, just 2 across the league. Next year, year, you're going to see a lot more of that. Teams traditionally want to lump their games, a glut of games in March and April. Obviously, they're trying to fire up for the playoffs. Well, next year, you're going to see a lot more games in October. 14 days taken out of the matrix of available days for the schedule makers to work with. So there's really no other option but to play more with less.
That is a jam-packed NHL regular season. They are the Insiders, Chris Johnston, Pierre LeBrun, and Darren Dreger.